till shade is gone,
till water is gone,
into the shadow with teeth bared,
screaming defiance with the last breath,
to spit in Sightblinder's eye on the last day.
by my honor and the light.
My life will be a dagger for Sightblinder's heart.
Until the last day. To Shio Ghoul itself.
This is A Dagger for Sightblinder, a podcast focused on all things Wheel of Time, with your hosts,
Sarah Lucas
and Adam Tricola. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Dagger for Sightblinder. May you find shade this day. How's the original, the OG Shadester doing? Sarah?
I'm good. That sounded pretty shady, Adam.
I mean, just because I don't know that lingo that well, you know?
Sure.
I don't know. I wonder when the last time I called someone a Shadester was.
Probably never.
And I wonder when the next time I'll ever call someone a Shadester is.
Next week when you say hi to me.
It just seems to fit, actually. So yeah, probably.
So rude. Oh man. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Does it? No.
Canadian shade.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing that.
Exactly. Canadian shade. Yeah, so we're back. We have more chapters.
More what?
More what? We're almost done the Dragon Reborn. I realized that the other day. I was like, man, we only have a few chapters left after this.
And then we hit the best book in the series.
Man, I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what your reaction to it is.
I know. I hope you didn't overhype it.
I'm sure I did. I mean, that's the crappy thing about, you're like, this is the best. And like, to me, it's very good. I really super enjoy it. And I'm unapologetic about it, but at the same time, I know what I mean when I say it's my favorite.
Right.
You don't necessarily, just off the top of your head, you're not like, oh yeah, what he means is like it's pretty good because of this, but not, like there's certainly, and like I bet the first 10 chapters you'll be like, why do you like this book? Like it doesn't,
oh, no.
it's not awful. No, it isn't awful, but it's a very, very slow start.
Okay, that's good to know.
And it's fine. Like I tend to be more of like a journey before destination. Like that's the way I have to view a lot of these books, is just like you get there and it's fun to just experience what the characters are experiencing.
Right.
So,
makes sense.
Anyways, I'm excited to start what is my favorite, unless it's book 11. I like book 11 a lot too, which is the last one he wrote before Robert Jordan died.
Well, we are a ways away from that one still.
We could just skip to that one.
Yeah, I'm sure I would handle that totally fine.
Narrator, she wouldn't.
All of the questions would happen. Okay, so we are going to talk about today chapters 40 to 49 in the Dragon Reborn. Although everything before that, everything in the show, etc., I have a little bit of show news, like tiny tidbit. And then we can hop into the book stuff.
Let's do it.
Cool. So we know that they were filming season 2 in Morocco, and they were there for like 2 months, something ridiculous. But there was photos that surfaced of Karima Mcadams on set, and she isn't confirmed to be cast in season 2 of Wheel of Time, but she has been confirmed by her agency that she was in Morocco for a large project. And since there were photos of her on set, people are, putting 2 and 2 together here.
And frankly, how many large projects are there in Morocco?
Right.
Maybe a lot, actually,
but the speculation is that she would play Celine. And a lot of people are coming to this speculation and coming to this conclusion because she is the same like body height and build and etc. as the stand-in that the crew was using for all of the scenes involving Celine. So could be interesting. And I don't know if you have, this is like the one thing for me whenever I'm reading a book and then also watching, whether it's a series or a movie or whatever, if there are characters that I've met in the book and haven't been cast, I'm always curious if they'll match how I've envisioned them in like my mental eye. And she doesn't, which is not a bad thing. Karima Mcadams.
Karima Mcadams?
Yes. And it's not a bad thing. It was just something that I noticed.
Does that start with a K?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's pretty enough, I think.
Yeah. It's not it wasn't a bad thing. I just didn't, I don't know. It doesn't match what I had.
Yeah. Oh, so I guess the thing for me is, how can you cast Lanfear, Celine, like this person who, it's like the epitome of like, you have to be like almost perfectly beautiful, and like it's almost like you can't really find a person like that, but
right,
like she's actually very pretty. That's cool. I don't know, you either have to deliberately like cast someone who isn't that pretty, so that it's almost like people notice and they're like, oh, like they're trying to show that you can't find someone as pretty as her, so like we're just, or you have to actually, I don't know, she matches ish what I had pictured, so yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so just a fun little thing, since they seem to keep, they're very tight-lipped on who has been cast and who hasn't and all this stuff.
Yeah, they're like Star Wars.
Yeah. All right, so that's all I got for you show wise.
Okay, well that's something I guess they casted someone pretty to be in a show. Okay. I mean, at the end of the day.
Shocker, I know.
Yeah, I mean, you can, who knows if she's a good actor. Probably other people do. I'm not familiar with her work at all. So, one would hope. I think that I'm far enough away from my teenage years that I would actually prefer a good actor or actress over someone who's just pretty.
Right. Right.
Hopefully she has both.
Yeah, I'm sure if this is, accurate speculation and she is cast, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm also curious, like, I don't know, I feel like they would do some kind of special effect around her in general to kind of make her stand out from everyone else.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Just thought.
Ooh, so one thing that I remembered that we both swore viciously after we discovered that this is true, we didn't do the Mac or the most sus. So Mac, for those of you who are new listening, most annoying character from the last segment, and we didn't do the most sus character from the last segment or episode. So we need to do that. We need to rectify that, Sarah.
Yes, so we should do that before we go into the chapters. Okay.
So this is for chapters, what?
30 to 39.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 to 39. Okay, so the only person here that is screaming, like, not even screaming, but like hinting towards being sus is the Falcon, Zareen, Fail, whatever she wants to call herself.
Fail.
Man, only because she just is giving off that like suspicious, those stereotypical suspicious traits. Like she's, staring at Perrin and watching them and clearly like following them around and showing up where they are. And like, It's just
Mhm.
all very suspicious behavior. So there isn't really anyone else, I don't think,
Yeah, I
that
mean,
really like stood out to me. That would be.
yeah, I think you're right. I think that, yeah, so I mean, there's obviously like we're gonna meet dark friends and stuff, like
Mhm.
like people who are trying to the guy who tried to kill Matt and like
Right.
of course those guys are sus, but like are they really worth noting as such?
Right. That's an obvious sus.
Yeah, it's like Narg being the most annoying character. Like pick someone who isn't a Trolloc, please.
Never living it down. Uh
Not on my watch.
okay, so who would you say is the Mac from these chapters? Because no one really annoyed me.
Yeah, well, and it's tough because you spelled Mata at one point.
Oh, cool.
That's fine. Totally
Uh,
fine.
it's fine.
Um, you also spelled harbor with an extra U. You spelled
Yes,
it in the Canadian after the Canadian fashion.
I did. I did.
Is that actually, just out of curiosity,
Uh,
is that like a typo? Like does it recognize it as a typo on yours, on your
yes,
Google Docs?
it does.
Okay, that's fine. And actually, I clicked on it and it says change locale to British English.
Right.
Actually, so if I okay, that's totally fine. Okay. Anyways, so I mean we see all the different characters.
Mhm.
I think that I think that you can make an argument that Egwene is the most annoying.
Poor Egwene. Okay, so what about Egwene though is annoying you?
Oh, well, I think it's either her or Elaine, one of the two. But
Mm,
like they're hanging out with the Aiel women, and they're just acting so freaking ignorant, and
mhm.
like they're like, well, we're trying to understand, kind of, but then they just keep like putting their foot in their mouths and it's like saying things that I don't know. To me, it just seemed like they could have been a lot more circumspect about things that they said, and
Mhm.
I don't know. There was a lot of things that they kind of annoyed me. Their whole interaction with the IEL, but at the same time, I don't know how much better I would do. So it's
Right.
hard to say. And Nynaeve, meanwhile, is like screaming at the top of her lungs because she has to be angry to channel, which I mean
Mhm.
you're gonna see that some more in this series, so we just get used to that, but it's kind of annoying as well. what are your what are your thoughts?
um, I can kind of see Egwene, and I feel like Egwene and Elaine would be like a combo of being annoying. Like they make each other annoying just because of how they're interacting with each other.
El Egwene.
Egwene, because I can understand Egwene's like hesitancy to just blindly trust the Aiel and like
Sure.
not, and she is ignorant, like you said, but I can understand her point of view a little bit more than I can understand Elaine's. Um, and I feel like they are just kind of feeding into each other instead of, you know, making the situation better, which is funny for me to say because Elaine is trying to get Egwene to realize that it's okay and to not do certain things, but
It's in a lot of ways Elaine is worse because at least Egwene's like, well, I don't claim to know anything about the IEL,
right.
and Elaine's like, oh well, here's all this stuff, and the IEL are like, oh, you don't know crap either. So
But like, wouldn't it just be easier to just say, I don't know anything about like you and where you come from and like
yeah.
your upbringing? Like, wouldn't that just be easier?
Okay, so there's also the embarrassment factor because they're passing themselves off as Aes Sedai,
Right.
and I'm like, Aes Sedai wouldn't act like that. Like, grow up, like be more mature. Stop it.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
they need to grow up and be more mature, of course, but because they're just accepted. At the same time, I'm like, well, you're saying you're Aes Sedai, and now you're making people think Aes Sedai are dummies.
Right. Yeah, that's bad too. I don't think it's any of the other characters. Like, no.
Moraine is perpetually annoying in this.
She is
to some degree,
but
she's
she
not
doesn't
very nice.
She doesn't do anything in these chapters that's more annoying than usual.
Okay, that's fair. So Elgwayne then.
Elgwayne it is. Man.
Very good.
Okay, so now that we've addressed that, we can hop into the actual assigned reading.
Let's do it.
Reading. Assigned reading, chapters 40 to 49. It's like a book report.
I know, like I feel like I'm back in class.
Sorry. Okay, so chapter 40 is A Hero in the Night. So we go back to Matt and Tom, and they are still on the Grey Gull. So that's the ship that they were on when it was, quote unquote, attacked. Headed to Erangel, and Matt's opened Elaine's letter to her mom, which is interesting. But he's pretty much decided that this letter is why people are after him and, trying to kill him.
Okay.
Whatever the contents of this letter contain. Anyway, so they do dock, and they're looking for an inn. And I liked this because Matt immediately just starts playing dice, like, against this innkeeper for them to have rooms at this inn, have a room at this inn, and then decides to just double up and be like, hey, we need horses too.
So you skipped, I do like that part. You skipped an important part because
sorry.
Well, just because it was just funny because last episode I was talking about how like there is sometimes this thing where Robert Jordan like kind of thumbs his nose at the readers and says like, only in a story would something like this happen.
Yes.
Like only in a story would one man fight 10 and win. And then the one man goes and fights 10 men and wins, and and it's like, well, we're in a story, so cool. So at the same time, like, so if Matt gets off the docks and he's telling Tom, he's like, I only do things for money. Like I'll help people if they can pay. And he's acting all mercenary. And also Tom is also just like, oh, I haven't noticed you do anything nice for anyone ever. And at some point, like that Matt sees, he's like, only fools in stories like help other people for no cause at all, or something like that. And then just like a couple sentences later, he sees a woman with a couple kids, and they're all not fugitive, but refugees. And so he throws them a bunch of money, and he's like, go feed your kids and all this stuff. And then Tom's looking at him weird. He's like, what? They were crying loudly. It was obnoxious. Like, yeah. And but he had that exact thing, like only heroes in stories did stupid things like that. Yeah. And then he did it himself.
I do remember laughing at that part, so I should have, only because I listened to it pretty much immediately after we had recorded that, and it did stick in my brain that you had talked about that. So
it was just a fun, I chuckled to myself. Like I don't think I would really care that much about it, except I had just called out like that one element of craft that Robert Jordan uses, and then he's like, oh, here it is, like in the first like couple pages, kind of.
Then goes and does it.
Yeah.
Anyways. Anyway, so Matt wins. They got a place to stay. They got horses. Yep, wins. He always wins. Okay. Anyway, so then we meet these people from the Illuminators Guild that have come to Moose and other people that are there. They're trying to kill this person Eludra, because she did not keep the secrets from the Illuminators Guild, apparently.
She's making fireworks. Yeah. And setting them off and selling some of them to feed herself. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And she remembers she's from book 2
right.
as well. Like she has like a small part, but when they go into the Illuminators Guild, sneaking around and carrying. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just one of those times again where Matt decides to intervene and is like, no, I'm gonna help her so that they don't kill her. And you know, Tom throws him his quarterstaff and they just start defending her and win.
Well, yeah, because he's a badass with the quarterstaff. We've established this.
Yeah. And then eventually everyone just kind of goes on their separate ways and they leave, and that's that.
He tries to give Aludra some money.
And she gives them fireworks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think one of my favorite parts though was at the end, like, because Matt keeps telling Tom like, I'll only do things for people who like he's giving that kind of tough guy persona of like, I'll only help people who can pay. I don't want to help anyone. And then he just jumps in and does stupid things like that. You know, like even he's like, I'm a fool for helping her. You know, like next time I try to do something hero like that, Tom, like kick me and stuff. But then like Aludra is older than him, an older girl. And, you know, she tells Tom like, oh, he's young yet, but you know, blah, blah, blah. And Tom's like, yeah, he's not nearly as bad of a person as he likes to say he is or likes to think he is.
Yeah, just calls him on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was it's a very telling thing of like Matt's character. Like he wants to think that he's just like this villain almost. But in reality, he's not. He actually wants good things for just random people. He's not selfish the way he thinks he is, kind of.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so chapter 41 is A Hunter's Oath. So we go back to Perrin, and they were all on the boat because they were leaving, and they're headed to Ilion. So they're there, they're getting there, they're docking. Zareen is asking a bunch of questions to Moraine, which aren't really, you know, getting answered, and she's planning to stay with them still. She still thinks that they're going to help her get to the Horn of the Lear. And Perrin is having all of these struggles with the wolves. You can't hear them, but he's having dreams of Hopper, which are interesting. And anyway, so they get off this boat, and Moraine is basically trying to insist that Zareen should leave and not come with them. She's still saying she's going to do it, and Moraine basically says like, okay, but you have to swear that even after you learn what we are up to, you are not going to leave. Like you have to stay with us once you learn, and then you can't ask questions. You have to be useful. Basically saying she's only going to tell her as much information as she wants to tell her, and makes her swear on this, and then which she agrees to. And Marie's just like, oh yeah, and I guess like Perrin can basically be your babysitter and watch over you, make sure you stay in line. It's just he immediately is like, me? Like what?
What the yeah.
And it's just the funniest reaction because he's clearly very affected by her. And Moraine's like, yeah, you can handle this. It's fine.
Narrator. He couldn't. Not that we wanted him to.
No. Yeah, so that is basically that.
Yeah. I think it's funny, like it gets out that like the whole crew knows that Moraine's an Aes Sedai, which she wanted to keep secret. But the reason it got out, and Perrin doesn't even know who said it, but he had let himself get drawn into a shouting match with her, with Zareen, and maybe that's the next chapter. I don't remember, but like he just like kind of casually mentions it in his you know like thought process and stuff, and it just made me laugh. Like he he just sees it. He's so methodical and calm, and like and he tries to not let all the emotions get, and yet he has the situation where he gets pulled into a shouting match with her in front of everyone, and he just totally loses it. So like you said, he is absolutely affected by our sus. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so the next chapter, Easing the Badger.
Here, real quick.
Yeah, sorry.
Quick. So what do you predict now, please?
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
What is her role going to be moving forward?
Falcon, Zerine,
Yeah.
whatever her name is.
Yes, this woman, girl, person.
Okay, so she obviously, like, I know this is very stupid to even say, but just talking through it, she obviously has a connection to Perrin specifically, since she is the falcon that's perched on his shoulder. I almost feel like she is going to be romantically involved with Perrin somehow.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon.
Like, you think she's going to be a long-term character?
Yeah.
Or okay, just curious. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything.
I could see her. She has the type of personality so far that I have noticed that I could see her doing something reckless and getting killed. But no, I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon.
Okay. Cool. I think that's a good. I don't know. I don't want to give anything away. I think what you're saying is reasonable, is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know enough about her to really know what her role would be to Perrin in terms of, like, encouraging him or teaching him anything or whatever. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll know at some point soon-ish. I won't even say it. It's not really even in this book necessarily, but like soonish, we'll know more. So I wanted to just see what your thoughts were. So thank you. Okay. Thanks for indulging me.
I like that. Okay, so in this chapter, she's telling Perrin all about the city and like the square where she took her hunter's oath and all this stuff. And they're walking through the city, and Loyal's getting nervous because this city's been built by Ogiers, and he's worried that people are going to come to him and like collect him, so to speak, for repairs and all this stuff. And everyone's kind of reassuring him that won't happen.
Well, he's worried that other Ogier are going to take him back to the steading. That's what he's worried about, I think.
Well, and like, I think it's Perrin that's reassuring him, or it might be Moraine. I can't remember who it was.
Moraine wouldn't reassure.
It's probably Perrin. Yeah. Just reassuring him that no one's coming. It's just, I don't know why I find it so entertaining when Loyal worries. So
you could be Moraine.
It's so mean, I realize, but I just find it so entertaining. I'm like, oh, Loyal, you poor little thing.
I remember when my first son was still just a little baby, and he would cry about things, and I'd take it so seriously, and my little sister would laugh. She'd think it was so funny. Like she was an adult, just a young, she just thought it was so cute that he was crying, and I was like, could you just shut up? Like, I was so annoyed. He's my little boy. Like, his crying is tragic to me. And she's like, it's just cute. I don't know. I'm like, I will not murder her in her sleep.
Yeah, Loyal worrying is just entertaining. I don't know. I know, that's terrible. Anyway, okay, but Perrin's noticing
it is a little bit.
It is. He's noticing that people in the town are they all like seem angry, like they seem off, which is interesting, I think. Anyway, so they get to this inn, Easing the Badger, that's what it's called. And the innkeeper is Nida, I don't know. Nida.
Sure, let's call her the same thing as that captain, that Imperial captain in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Nida. Apology accepted, Captain Nida.
So anyway, so she is a blue Aja, which is interesting.
Wait. So
Is she not?
So okay, yeah. To be blue Aja, you have to be an Aes Sedai.
Right. Okay. Sorry.
So she. I don't know how clear they are, but I don't think it's a spoiler to say she's one of the eyes and ears for the Blue Aja. So she's affiliated with them, certainly. She works for Moraine or other Blue Aja people, like Sheriam is, I guess Swan is not technically Blue Aja since she's the Amerlin and she's of all of them. But yeah, Blue. So she works for them. She sends her reports to the tower, to the Blue Aja, and that's. So all of the different Ajas have like a whole spy network, everywhere, and so she's part of the Blue.
Okay. Yeah, because she's talking to Moraine, and it's like I got the vibe that like she was using a code, like she's calling Moraine Mary, and she's talking about this guy that nobody's heard of, this Lord Brend person. But Moraine is obviously concerned based off what she's hearing, so like it doesn't make sense to anyone listening, but Moraine was able to decipher it and be concerned about it.
I think it was pretty straightforward what she said, actually. I think it was just like so I know all the things kind of that are happening there, like maybe not all of them. I don't remember everything, but surprise, but but like Lord Brand, I mean, we find out what and who he is and stuff, and I think that like the whole thing that's very interesting to me, like all of this whole book is all about dreams, which yay for me, of course, but
your favorite thing.
But this is all about everyone has the same, like they're all dreaming of similar things, and
they're all like connected in their dreams, and
like I don't think that there's another book that has this much just like pervasive dream stuff. Like they just talk about dreams. Everywhere, every town is affected by dreams, and people are dreaming about the sword. They're dreaming about Rand. There's a thing in I forget which place it was. I guess in Terre that we'll talk about a little bit later, that they dream about Rand, and other people are dreaming about. I mean, everyone's dreaming about a similar thing everywhere. So I don't know quite what to make of it, because I think that Robert Jordan was like, wow, I really went overboard on dreams. Like I'm gonna back up just a little bit.
Dial it back a bit.
Because I actually don't mind it as much. It's just it's one of those early series things too, of like so we find out who Lord Brand is eventually, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's why everyone is so angry all the time and grumpy and pissed off. Like half the people are just like have lost it, and you're like, oh, I guess I can understand that. That's fair, given who he is and everything. But then you don't really see evidence of that sort of thing later. Like this is like that time that Moraine in book 1 like is a giant and walks over the wall.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then you never see it happen again.
Yeah, like it's like, oh, he decided that would probably be overpowered for like the continuity of the stories, so we'll just leave that. Well, if he didn't redact it, that's fine. But it's like a one-time thing, and these dreams are in a way, like the way they're impacting people is a little bit like a one-time
thing.
Yeah. So
Okay.
just as an observation from a long time reader.
That's fair. Cause like for me, like the dreams, I'm like, is this, especially because in this book, they're so connected, like you were saying, and you're seeing everyone else in each other's dreams. You're kind of like, okay, it's another world, but is what's happening in them real? Is it not real? Is it just a hint at the future? Like you're trying to decipher it and all this kind of fun stuff, you know?
I do know.
Okay, anyway, so they get their rooms, they go upstairs and they're gonna have dinner and all this fun stuff. But Perrin ends up when they're having dinner, he smells something is wrong, like something's bad, and doesn't know what it is. He just knows that something smells wrong. And then he realizes that it's these 6 men that are kind of walking towards them that smell wrong, quote unquote. And they decide to attack. They have knives and they focus in on Perrin, and
Man, I love this part.
man, and he just doesn't really know what happens, and then they're dead.
He rips one of the chairs apart with his bare hands. He's like grabs a chair. He doesn't have a weapon because he's at the table. So he just rips a chair apart because he's so strong and beats them to death. It's so cool.
Yeah, like it's that. It's also very similar to what you were saying last week about like only in a story one man could take on 10. Like Perrin takes on all 6 of these guys and then they're dead.
Well, Lan is there too.
Yeah, but like Perrin's the one ripping chairs apart and
yeah, it's epic, man. I love it.
Being a brute force.
I thought that B that you're gonna start with was badass.
Yeah, that too.
But yeah, like I think it's so cool. Like they have a bouncer there, you know, and he's like ready to jump in and fight or whatever. But Perrin and Lan kill all 6 of them,
and it's done
before the bouncer can even react. Yeah. Like they're all just like dead. Goodbye. Really epic.
Yeah. Anyway, so it turns out these guys were gray men. So they're all dead, and Moraine ends up. This is the thing with Moraine. Like this happens, and then she, pulls Lan aside at the inn and is like, I have to go somewhere, and I've got to go by myself. So if I don't come back, then you need to protect Perrin, and you're just gonna stay here. And it's like this whole altercation incident just happened, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna leave,
right?
And not tell you why.
Yeah, at one point, Lan got a pretty good one on her, though. He's like, I forget what he was like, oh, like, are you sure you don't want me to just go hang out with Maurice Sedai or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I forget if it's this part or later. Maybe it's a little earlier even, but just, yeah,
he's salty at
like,
all.
I just love that give and take. He's just like, you know what, you're gonna do this to me, I'm gonna like make you suffer for it a little bit, Moraine. It's fun.
It is. Okay, so but then in the next chapter for Shadowbrothers, Lan is now wanting to know how Perrin knew that these guys were, that the gray men were there, and that they were, bad news.
Bad news bears.
Bad news bears. Anyway, so they end up going outside of the inn, and they find this, like, I guess it's like a paw print of sorts that's kind of in the stone, and Lan's like, this is a dark hound print, which is interesting. So it's a dark hound, a
shadow spawn.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yep, there's shadow spawn. And this might be, there might be a couple other shadow spawn, but at this point, like we have a pretty full knowledge of all the different shadow spawn.
Okay.
Now there's just not too many more, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so he sees these prints, and then he's like, okay, well, I need to go find Moraine wherever she went and tell her about this. And Perrin, goes back to the inn and is he ends up trying to find Hopper in his dreams to see if he can learn about dark hounds that way. And this is again exactly what you were just saying. Everyone's in each other's dreams because he gets there and he feels like he's in somebody else's dream. And Matt is there. He sees Matt playing dice or a cup of dice, whatever, with Balsamon. And he sees Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine there that are basically getting caught in a trap of some sort. And yeah, so he's clearly not in his own. Definitely feels like he's in somebody else's dream. Anyway, when he wakes up though, Zareen comes in and she asks him if he is the Dragon Reborn. She's just asking all of the questions. And then Moraine comes barging in because I guess Lan found her, you know, saying that the Forsaken are there in town and that one of them is ruling. So we clearly know what's going on. And that's why everyone in town is so angry.
Yeah. So Lord Brand is here, and he's Samael, which you know.
Yep. Which we get into in the next one.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Because that's exactly what, like, the next chapter in Hunted, you learn that he's Samael, and he's, you know, he's the one who sent the Darkhounds to Ilion.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's in Ilion.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, your note says that, but this is actually this chapter, I believe, is we can have a callback moment to something I told you earlier in the book. But let's get to it, and then I'll explain.
Okay. Yeah. So she's explaining that he is Samael. He's a Forsaken. He sent for the Darkhounds, but she doesn't think he sent for the Grey Men. And then this is where Perrin is, you know, immediately just slips up and is like, well, why would the Grey Man come for me when Rand is the Dragon Reborn? Which, you know, he says this in front of the innkeeper. He says it in front of Zareen. So now Moraine is like, dude, like, keep your mouth shut, and is swearing these other two to secrecy. And now also she's like, Zareen can't leave. Like, she absolutely has to stay with us now that she knows this information. Like,
yep,
cannot go. You have no choice now.
You're stuck. Yep. Fail. Yeah.
Fail on fail.
Yeah. Failure upon failure.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're obviously going to be leaving the town, and Perrin wants to know what's going on, like all this kind of stuff. He's just shooting at Moraine, where she lets it slip that Matt's already blown the horn of Valyr. And now Zareen's like, oh, like the hunt's over. Like,
yeah, she's like, wait, someone already found it?
Yeah. And it's just so funny because this whole time, you know, when she's first introduced, she's like, yeah, you guys can help me find the horn of Valyr. I'm like, aw, you're gonna be in for such a disappointment when you realize what's happened. And that's exactly how it happens. Yeah, and then we end up switching to Matt for the rest of the chapter. So was the callback in this part, or was it in the Matt part?
Oh, okay. So it's in the next Perrin segment, actually.
Okay.
Because well, hold on. So they run.
Yeah.
So at what point, because they do have they have one more segment here, do they? In their section, or is it? I feel like when they were running, I feel like it's in this chapter, actually. Like they were running from the Darkhounds. Yeah.
They are there, and that's when Moraine lets it slip that Matt had already blown the horn of Valyr.
Okay, so yeah, this is the callback moment because this is the last part with Perrin, I think, in this particular cast. But yeah, so remember when Rand is, you know, like trying to kill those dogs that are chasing him?
Yes.
And I told you, don't feel bad for the dogs.
Yes, you did.
It's because they're Darkhounds.
Ah.
And they're Shadow Spawn. And so if you want to feel bad for Shadow Spawn, I don't know what to say, Dark Friend.
Fair. Okay. Yes, I do remember that. Okay. That, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but they were hunting him, and
Mhm.
he lured him in to kill him. And there's textual evidence to support what I said. We don't need to go back to it, but
Okay.
yeah, he didn't even know they were shadow spawn. He just knew that they were trying to kill him, and
Right.
he needed. I mean, honestly, in my mind, that's enough. That I don't feel like I've had dogs attack me before, like back when I was like a paper carrier, and
Mhm.
it's like I kicked one in the head, and I don't know if I killed it, but it's like I don't feel bad if I did kill it because I have to protect myself first,
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Noted. Dark hounds. Don't feel bad for dark hounds. Got it.
well, there's some pretty interesting segments with dark hounds in later parts of the series. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, so there's another actually really important thing we can't gloss over.
Okay.
Moraine uses an ability that is, uh, it's forbidden, and it's an incredibly important thing moving forward in the series. She uses balefire.
Right. Okay. Yes, that's right. Because she kills them with balefire.
Yeah, like Perrin brings down one hound with his
Mhm.
bow from a long distance. He's like, oh crap, there's still 9 of them. We're screwed. And then,
Mhm.
of course, she just evaporates them with balefire.
Mhm.
But it's a forbidden weave. It's like Avada Kedavra, I
Oh.
guess. Like it's like, and she says, she's like, if anyone knew that I even knew this weave, I could be
Right.
stilled.
Ooh.
Like it's a big deal that she
Mhm.
knew it. And like you can't hardly blame her. Like it's either kill shadow spawn with it, or
Mhm.
just be slaughtered for no reason, like
Right.
when you could have defended yourself. So I can't find faults, but at the same time, like
It's a
the
big.
yeah, and that weave will enter into the equation more and more as the series progresses.
Okay. So make a mental note of that as well.
Yes, balefire. And actually Nynaeve,
Mhm.
you used it in the last segment, in the
Mhm.
last cast, actually, when she like the Aiel were attacking the Murdrol, and they were ripping it apart with
Yes.
the power.
Yes,
Then
she did.
Nynaeve, but no one like understood what it was. Like they were like, what was that? Because they just like disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's what it was.
Interesting. Okay.
She just didn't know
She
about
didn't
it.
know what she did.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the last bit of this chapter is with Matt now.
Mm-hmm.
So he is just, throwing bits of these fireworks that Eludra gave him into the fire. And then this group kind of approaches the campsite where him and Tom are,
Mm-hmm.
of I think it's 2 men and a woman or 3 men and a woman, doesn't really matter. It's a group of people.
Yep.
And he, kind of distracts them with more fireworks. Because
Throws them in the fire. Yeah.
he throws them in the fire to distract them and realizes like they have uh blades or whatever they're gonna attack clearly. And he recognizes one of them from the ship, one
Mm-hmm.
of the attackers. So anyway, so he kills one, Tom kills one, and then Tom, ends up killing the woman as well. He like throws the blade at her. And Matt kind of has this moment of like, you didn't need to kill her, she's harmless. And Tom points out like she's got a knife, like a blade in her hand, coming towards you. Like, she would have killed you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yep.
just interesting that Matt missed that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why he would miss it, but he did. And then again, he just keeps insisting that they're coming after him because he has this letter.
Yeah. Yeah. So Matt has this blind spot
Mhm.
for women
Yeah.
in general. Like you'll note that more and more. He's
Which is, I was thinking maybe that's why it was. Like he just was like, oh, it's a woman, she's not going to kill me.
yeah. So and actually they kind of in a way address that idea in a little later in this cast with Jewel and Sandar talking to the girls in Terre, but we can talk about that later. But Jewel and Sandar, the thief taker that they talk to,
Yeah.
he's like, like when I was young, I made the mistake of assuming that a woman wouldn't knife me as
Mhm.
readily as a man until she did, and now I don't assume anything.
Mhm. So
So,
maybe Matt needs that experience.
well, yeah, like there's been
Uh,
a couple times now that he's been kind of duped by women, but
mhm.
he doesn't like this is a good growing portion because Matt doesn't necessarily, he won't be like, oh yeah, she's harmless, she's a woman all the time, but
Mhm.
he like he's you know he's more and more wise about this sort of thing, but yeah, you'll see he treats women a little differently, just
Mhm.
like the his upbringing, I think, is mostly what it is. But we could talk about that as we can unpack it as we continue. So
Mhm. Um,
anyways,
yeah, okay. So in chapter 45, Camelin, so Tom and Matt have, like are making their way. They're still trying to deliver this letter, and Tom wants to rest,
mhm.
and Matt's like, no, like we want to go. I just want to go get this over and done with type thing and deliver it right away.
Yep.
Um, and he says that he's like, you go, I'm gonna go off to the palace, and he's trying to get through the guards in to go see Queen Morgaze, and they are not having it. They think he's a dark friend. They start chasing him when he barely escapes this whole thing. So he ends up going back to the inn, back to the Queen's Blessing where Tom was. And it's Tom and Basil, and they're chatting, and he asks them about the palace and all this, and Basil explains like Lord Gabriel's here, and he's basically replaced half of the guards with his own,
Mm.
um, after he became advisor. Um, and Matt rolls the dice again for luck, and he gets 5 single like dot, one
Pips,
dice.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's I really, can I just say I really like the focus of Matt and the dice and like his luck here. I don't know why, but
Yeah.
it's very intriguing to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has this epiphany at some point that his luck is all about randomness.
Yes, he does, and that's in this section of chapters that he does have that epiphany, because he's explaining that to Tom later on.
Yeah. So, one of the most enjoyable parts of this whole series to me
Mhm.
is like Matt realizes this randomness, and like, so now we get to watch how he learns how to wield his luck,
Right.
because
Okay.
he sees it's like a quarterstaff, like it's a weapon that you could, you can use it as a weapon, whatever, in all these different ways, and you can, and very similarly, your luck can be something you use, like if you know that you can count on this thing,
Mhm.
uh, you need to know all the rules about it, you need to know all the parameters, and then like why not use it as a tool?
Right.
Like even though like you and I might scoff at someone who says like, oh my gosh, I'm just the worst luck ever, or someone who's like, I'm just naturally lucky, like in this case the luck is a tangible, real thing to him. At least he knows he's going to be lucky, and we
Yeah.
see evidence of it. So if that's a given, then
Mhm.
it's just fun to see him,
Yeah.
that
Yeah, exactly. Um
anyways.
anyway, okay, so the next chapter, a message out of the shadows. So he goes back to the palace, and he decides he's going to climb the same wall that Rand first climbed, that he fell over when he met
Yeah.
Elaine. So
Mhm.
he kind of does this, and he falls over, and he's hiding. And he overhears this man telling another one, that he needs to go to Tyr, and he needs to kill Elaine and the other two, being Nynaeve and Egwene, which Matt realizes. And then eventually, while he's there listening in, he is spotted by another guard, and he manages to get out that he has this letter. It's from Elaine. It's for Morgaze, and he really needs to deliver it, and he needs to deliver it in person. Like he needs to actually just hand it to her. Because this, I think it's Talonvor, if I remember correctly, that catches him. Is like, oh well, give me the letter and I'll take it to her. And he's like, no, I have to I told Elaine that I would do it myself and put it in her hand myself and all this stuff. Anyway, so they go and they let Matt in and gives the letter to Morghese, and he's got this whole plan about how he's going to tell Morghese, like, there's somebody in her palace that wants to kill her daughter. And then Lord Gabriel speaks and asks to see the letter, and Matt immediately recognizes the voice from earlier on and is like, well, I can't tell her now because he's here. So that plan is shot out the window. And then this was really weird to me. It wasn't weird to me how Matt kind of maneuvered his way around the conversation after this, because you could tell that he was just trying to like get out of there alive and not draw suspicion. But it was very strange to me that Gabriel's like, here, have 10 gold marks. Why don't like go see the world before you go home? Because Matt's passing it off like he's got to go home to help his family on the farm and like all this stuff. He's like, yeah, just go see the world. And it's like, this was just super weird. Like, just very, why would you care about some random person, you know?
Okay, so you see, I don't know. All right, so now I'm trying to remember, because I know something about this guy that
I don't know.
I'm guessing you just don't know. But okay, so he's risen to prominence fairly quickly, though.
Yes, which we learn because Matt eventually, when we get to the next chapter, goes to ask about him. But so now I'm wondering, and this is just me like spitfiring ideas, so I could be completely wrong. Would you, if you were Gabriel, pay Matt off to go see the world type of thing without paying him off, but like, you know, kind of fund his trip, because you're trying to kill the person that he's delivering a letter for? So if you kind of send him on his way, go see the world, he's far enough away that you can kind of have this happen without him possibly intervening or getting in the way of your plans. Like, would Gabriel see him as someone who would be capable of doing that?
I don't really. I think he's totally taken in by Matt. Okay. But like, I think Matt's totally fooled him here. So I think what's happening here is he's maneuvering for, like, he wants people to see him as generous.
Okay, fair.
And at the end of, like, that's his goal with the 10 gold coins. I don't think that there's any ulterior motive other than, oh, well, here's my generosity.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just looking at it through tinted lenses, so
paranoid eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So to speak. Okay, fair. So that's what happens there.
That is, yeah. So yeah, then I guess in the next chapter they leave.
Yeah, well, so
he leaves.
Matt goes, he leaves. Talonvor walks him out to the gate, and Matt ends up going back to Queen's Blessing Inn and talking to Tom and Basil, and that's where Basil fills him in about Gabriel and how he, you know, quickly became the advisor to the Queen, this whole thing. Yeah. And Matt's kind of there was just this really great line. Matt, you know, lets them know that he overheard Gabriel saying this thing and he wants Elaine dead and all this kind of stuff. And Basil's like, well, did you tell Morghese? And Matt is so sarcastic with him. Like, yeah, I told her everything with Gabriel standing right there. Like, no problems. That was not a deterrent at all. But anyway, so they do end up coming up with this. Tom and Basil kind of come up with this plan to start a rumor, because the best way to let the Queen know is if she hears it from the people, and if she hears it enough times, she's going to eventually like look into it and become suspicious. So if you start a rumor, it'll eventually make its way back there. And Basil's, you know, explaining how he can start this, and he knows exactly who he needs to have overhear him, and that person's going to just make it run all over town, and it won't be traceable at all back to him, and you know, which is great. And I did like the end of this chapter. So, Matt wants to leave right away, and Tom's like, no, we'll leave in the morning. And Matt ends up rolling for dice again, and he rolls 5 6s. But he ends up just having this line of how he always wins. And
such bravado.
It was it felt very Matt-like to me. I was like, Matt.
And I always win.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, bud. That's cool.
Right. Cool. Yeah, so that's that. And then the next 2 chapters are with Egwene and Nynaeve and all of them, with the girls.
Yeah.
Okay, so following the craft, chapter 48. So they're headed to Tyr. Egwene's seasick, she's trying to get over it. This whole thing. She's still having dreams. Can't figure out their meanings. Again, surprise, she can't figure out what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And they get off the ship and they see the stone of Tyr. And Elena's focused on finding Leandrin and the Black Aja and how they're going to do it. Nynaeve doesn't want to stay at an inn. It's just all very felt very divided. Anyway, but they ended up going and just coming across, as they rode into town, a house of a wisdom that's, I guess, not called a wisdom. But it's this woman, Mother Gwenna, who's there, and her and Nynaeve are kind of having this. It felt very like a one-up competition, or going over all of their knowledge on herbal remedies and what to do in the case of pregnancy pains and all this, or labor pains, and all this stuff, just quizzing each other. And then eventually Nynaeve asks her if they can stay there, if there are rooms, because she doesn't feel comfortable staying in an inn, explains they're being chased, they don't have any men with them. And that's when Mother Gwenna brings in Julian, like you were saying, this thief catcher.
Yes.
To help them. So it was a very humorous and interesting chapter, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, well, I thought it was funny to, Elaine points out that Egwene and Nynaeve can't stop quarreling.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. It is a funny chapter. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I tend to the parts with the 3 girls. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just because the characters are less relatable to me or whatever. Mm-hmm. I still listen, I still pay attention, but they're less compelling to me.
They just don't feel like they are getting a lot of the, aside from when in when Egwene and them got captured by the Shan-Chan, mm-hmm. They don't feel like they are having as much of the action. It almost feels like they're just going from place to place and speaking to people, but there isn't a lot of mm-hmm. stuff chasing them almost. I don't know. That's probably the wrong way to phrase it. I understand what you're saying, because I feel it too. I don't feel like they're as compelling. But you know that I love the parent chapters. Give me parent chapters all day.
Well, so you have Matt, who goes in and rescues Aludra and beats the crap out of people who are trying to murder her, and then he discovers a plot to assassinate the daughter heir, mm-hmm. and he fools the queen and and her advisor, and he sneaks over the wall and he does all this stuff, and he's doing all these crazy things, mm-hmm. and Perrin is destroying chairs and beating people to death with them. And he's having wolf dreams, and he's doing all this awesome stuff. Right. And these girls are wandering around, getting captured by dark friends. They have to get saved. There's all this bluster. They're just annoyed at each other, and mm-hmm. it's what are you guys doing? Just stop being why can't you break these chairs apart, mm-hmm. and beat someone to death? That's going to be fun to read about. Right.
So I will say in the last chapter, 2 things. I lied. We go back to Matt before we're done here. But they do get this last chapter, I was more intrigued with them again. So they end up in chapter 49, which is a storm and tear. So this thief taker that Mother Gwen has brought in, Julian, has said that he can help them. And he's seen like men walking on rooftops, and like eventually like the High Lords are going to call for him, but he'll help them as long as he can, essentially, until he's needed elsewhere. So Nynaeve describes these 13 women, so Leandrin and the other members of the quote unquote Black Aja. And she wants him to help find them, but she doesn't want him to recover the objects that they stole. She just wants to know where they are. And which he like begrudgingly agrees to. But anyway, so in the evening, Egwene, this is where I ended up getting kind of, I don't want to say hooked, but more intrigued by them. She goes into her like world of dreams, and she sees Leandrin and the other women are there. And they're all looking at Kalendor, and she ends up waking up for the first time by herself. Like no one's actually jolted her awake here. It's the first time she jolts herself awake, and she's able to. She tells Nynaeve and Elaine, once they realize that she did this, that the women aren't here; they're in Tyr, and they know that Elaine and Egwene and Nynaeve are there, and they're waiting for them. Like they are ready. So this was where I was like, oh, okay, it's going to get interesting really quick. And then immediately we go to Matt.
Which it's so funny. Like he's like, man, I'm going to have to get so lucky if I'm going to find these girls. As he walks past the place that they're sleeping and doesn't like, he's like, Matt, or he's like, Tom, the girls would never be in a place like this because it stinks. And all this stuff. And Tom's like, you might be surprised what women have put up with, but okay, let's move forward. And
and completely walks past where they're sleeping.
Yep. He like notes the herbs in the window and everything. He's like, oh yeah, it's that they would never be here.
Which is so amusing, but
because his luck was right there. His luck, like he would have found them instantly.
And the fact that he saw the herbs, like easily could have just ignored that. But
and this is where he has the epiphany of his luck.
Yes. So I was gonna say he kind of like him and so they're in this inn, and they're obviously looking for the girls and all this. But they're also looking for Komar, who is the man that Gabriel gave the order to go find Elaine and kill her and kill the other two. So they're looking for him as well. And they go into the Golden Cup, which I find is appropriately named considering the game that Matt loves to play. And they see him there, and Matt notices that he's playing dice and he's like cheating at it basically. So Matt decides that he's going to gamble with him. And I think he's using weighted dice because Matt obviously ends up winning anyway, even with the dice being weighted. And so anyway, Komar ends up pulling out the sword to kill Matt for beating him, I guess. We would like talk about a sore loser. Like,
well, Matt says, like, he tricks him into admitting, like he said,
yes.
He's like, he says Komar's name and startles him. He's like, you better not have killed those girls. He's like, I haven't even found the. He's like, wait, who, and then Komar's like, I will kill you.
I forgot that he did that. So, which seems fitting that it would be Matt that does that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's quick-witted. He's, yeah.
Anyway, but Matt ends up killing him. So I guess Komar doesn't kill him. But he does say to Matt that he's not the only one looking for the girls. So.
But did he say that just to mess with Matt?
Oh, maybe.
Or I always, that's what I would do if someone was like had landed the killing blow on me. I'd be like, what thing can I say that's gonna just mess with that guy's head?
I didn't even think of that. I was just like, oh, well, clearly Gabriel's sending orders out to all these people.
Yeah, I'd just be like,
Hmm.
yeah.
Okay. But then, like you said, this is where Matt kind of has his epiphany and explains to Tom that like his luck is random. And the only way they're going to find the girls is if Matt just looks for them randomly and does random things, and follows this like randomness. So they basically end up looking for 3 days, and Tom's got this cough because the weather sucks and it's getting worse. And then Matt starts having dreams about Rand because, like you said, everyone's dreaming about Rand. So Matt starts having dreams about Rand, and he's with some man, and they're weaving a net, and good old dream chapters.
Pretty fun, huh?
So that's that.
There it is.
There it is. Almost the end. So, okay. So we don't forget, who is your Mac? And I think the only sus person here is Gabriel. He's not even sus. He's outward. He's being so open about it. He's trying to kill Elaine. Like, that's not even really sus.
Almost not worth mentioning in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there is anyone.
I don't know if there is anyone else. I don't think there is anybody else that's sus. I think it would be him. So why does he want Elaine dead is the question. Anyway, that's
sure. Lord Gabriel. We can say that. That's fine.
Okay. And then who is your Mac?
Who's your Mac? You made me answer first last time.
I did. It's not Matt and it's not Perrin. I feel like they are doing good stuff. They're being productive members of society.
Productive citizens. Yeah. Killing those who need to be killed.
Yeah. I don't think it's Tom either.
Don't say Kumar.
No. He's barely in.
Don't say Leandrin.
No. I don't want to say Egwene. I don't know. Okay. It's got to be one of the girls, though. It's the most annoying.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
it's got to be.
I don't think it's Egwene. I don't know. I did find it annoying when Nynaeve and Mother Gwenna were kind of having this like herbal knowledge contest of who knew more than the other one.
Yeah, they're both showing off their lifted trucks.
Yeah, I just found that annoying, but I wouldn't say it was like the most annoying character level annoying. I don't know.
So there's a moment of saving grace for Egwene when she realizes just how annoying she's being. She's like, she did sound like such and such, like she did sound really annoying. Like she had this moment of self-realization of like, oh my gosh, right, like I'm just quarreling with Nynaeve just to quarrel kind of thing.
Right. And I feel like Egwene also just had this, and it's not anything of her own doing, but her realizing after being in the world of dreams that Leandrin and them are there and they're waiting. Like, it felt very redeeming to me. And I feel like Elaine hasn't really done anything. So maybe I'm annoyed with Elaine. Like, all she did was kind of be like, oh, we should do this. And it almost sounded whiny. And then she said they were fighting the whole time. But I feel like she's not contributing anything.
Yeah, I mean, none of them are contributing anything to anything. They're just all being ignored.
Fair. Fair enough. Okay, well, I'm going with Elaine. Who are you picking?
Sure. Let's go with I want Egwene. She's annoying me.
All right. Even though she had that moment of slight redemption.
Of clarity, yeah.
Still annoying.
Even she called herself the Mac. So who am I to stop her?
Fair enough. Okay, so next week will be the last set of chapters for this book. So there's only 7. It's 50 to 56.
All right.
So we will wrap up.
That's exciting.
Sound good?
What's going to happen?
I don't know.
No?
Something with Leandrin.
Okay.
That's my guess. Something with Leandrin.
All right. Something with Leandrin it shall be.
All right. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. May you always find water and shade.